That was in 1969. And in 1970, the Black United Students at Kent University actually held the first Black History Month celebration.
I was there.
Yes, and it was an important, I think, event in terms of this transition from Negro History Week to Black History Month. And in 1970, interestingly enough, Black United Students at Kent University held the very first Black History Month celebration. And it wasn't until 1976, with the celebration of the bicentennial, that the federal government officially recognized Black History Month. And at that time, of course, Gerald Ford was president. So we are talking about a process that began in 1915 with Carter G. Woodson and the establishment of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, a process that began there in 1915 and extended up to 1976 when you get the first recognition by the federal government of a Negro History Month. And since that time, of course, we've been celebrating Black History Month. And now, in 2016, we're talking about 40 years from 1976 up to 2016.
And that's a long period in terms of studying this particular subject,
exactly,
as well as those individuals who made great contributions to African-American history during the period.
Exactly. You're really pointing to the reasons why Woodson started Negro History Week in the first place. He never lived to see Black History Month because he died in 1950. But Woodson was very interested in presenting before the nation and the world a list of the achievements, of the contributions of African Americans to national history and culture, but also to world history and culture. He felt that this was very important in the struggle against racism, because as you well know, one of the arguments of white supremacists in the 1920s and 30s was that blacks had not contributed anything to national history and culture, national artistic life, world history. So Woodson wanted to say, hey, African Americans have been great achievers. And he felt that that was important not only in the struggle against racism, but he felt that that was important in dealing with the problems of black self-esteem. That blacks had to understand that they had been important contributors, achievers in American historical life, American cultural life. And Woodson said, hey, in order to get this message across, we need a Negro History Week, and of course later, as I said, it became Black History Month.
And in a real sense, Dr. Baldwin, I think we might say that your career, in a real sense, sort of epitomizes what Carter G. Woodson was trying to achieve, which is to say that he wanted folks to be knowledgeable in reference to the African-American experience.
Yes.
And I think when you think in terms of your education, the first books you published, and et cetera, this was all added fuel to the kind of information that he felt that we ought to be preserving and we ought to be writing, and et cetera.
Exactly.
So you in a real sense, formed the sort of a core.
That's right.
In terms of what Carter G. Woodson and others were concerned about. And I think you mentioned the Journal of Negro History and et cetera, that was always a medium whereby people like you and me and others could be reached and et cetera. And so it has a long, and I think that in a real sense you played a significant role in helping to establish the scholarly aspect, because it has to be recognized that while black folks might have been involved in helping to establish this organization, not many of us produced the kind of resources that you produced, 20-odd books and et cetera, dealing with Dr. King and et cetera. That's a bulwark.
That's right, that's right. But it all started with Woodson and people like W.E.B. Du Bois, because they were publishing a lot. Not only did Woodson call for a Negro History Week, if you look at the list of publications that he provided. He wrote a book on the history of the Negro Church. He wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. He wrote a book on Negro orators and their orations. He wrote a book on African-American slaves, on free African-Americans during the period of slavery. So Woodson felt that African-American history had to become a part of the classroom experience. It had to become a part of the educational curricula of this nation. So he pioneered in that regard, not only Woodson, but Du Bois, as I said. So I view myself and others who are writing today as standing in the tradition of these strong men.
And having read most of the information that Woodson and Du Bois, the African slave trade and et cetera, who can forget that kind of information that in a real sense inspired us all to become interested in the African experience and to know that there was a connection between Africa and the United States, even though at the time, Dr. Baldwin, a lot of folks didn't want to talk about that kind of connection. Talk about that. I mean, how did Africa fare in a real sense in reference to?
I think the importance of the work, the scholarship of people like Woodson and Du Bois is that they established the point that Africa had been a force in the shaping of world civilization. That from the very beginnings, Africa was involved, that Africa contributed to the history of the world, that Africa had been a force in the shaping of the world, of world civilization. And of course, Woodson and Du Bois pioneered in that regard. So scholars like myself and others, Sterling Stuckey, others who are writing today, are actually building on what yourself, with the kind of work you've done with African American history. We are actually building on what people like Carter Woodson and W.B. Du Bois.
So we're going to take this commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.